Welcome. I'm Dr. Barbara Paige, owner of Colorado Equine Clinic, and we're here today to talk about trailer and trailer safety for your horse and for you. We're going to start by talking about the outside the trailer first, then we'll go to the inside the trailer. We'll talk a little bit about safety for your horse, both for boots and any kind of thing to keep your horse safe, as well as biosecurity once you've gotten to the show grounds. So when we go to see our trailer, we want to be sure that everything is good and safe. We'll start with the tires. Check your tires carefully. Blowouts on the highway are no fun for anyone. You might even want to take them down to your tire dealer and be sure they've got sufficient amount of air in all of the tires and all the tread is nice and new. You want to look at the outside of your trailer. Is anything rusted over the winter? Is there anything that's just not working very well? This is the time to get all those things together so that you have a nice, pleasant trip. You want to look at the windows. Are the windows open and shut? How about the vents that we'll look at once we get inside the trailer? Don't forget about lights. Trailers go slower than some of the other cars do, and you want to be sure to give the cars behind you enough warning and your lights are working so that they can slow down appropriately. So just be sure as you look at a very, very careful eye and look at all parts of your trailer and be sure that it's worthy for its road trip. Taking it down to one of the various trailer dealers and having them go over it is a great idea. So now let's talk about getting into the trailer. First thing you want to look at is be sure you've got good latches. Having a nice catch for these latches is important. Something that you can take off with just one hand. You may have your horse in the other hand. Be sure that nothing needs any oil. So be sure everything is nice and easy to do in case you're in a hurry or something goes on. So when we talk about looking about the inside of the trailer, let's talk just for a moment about what's normal for horses. Horses are animals that are preyed upon, preyed upon in nature by lions and various predators. They therefore get their safety by looking far around the large horizons where their predators might come from. When we take this horse now and put them in a small enclosed confinement, they're going to have some fear because they can't see far around them. So you want to be sure you've got good windows in your trailer so that they have some light and they can feel some comfort of looking around them. You're going to want to be sure you've got some good ventilation. These trailers can get extremely warm, especially a black trailer can be more than 10 degrees hotter than a white trailer, so keep that in mind if you're getting a trailer. Now we're going to ask our horse to walk into this very small, for their perspective, can, and ask them to step up on this surface. The rubber mats are critical. It can be very slippery when these trailers go around a corner and you want a very non-slick surface. Rubber mat's important. Whether you put down shavings or not, that's up to you. Some horses feel it's a little more comfortable on shavings. Some prefer to not have the shavings. Remember, it's to not have a non-slick surface for the horse. You want to check the inside of the trailer. You want to be sure that nothing has come loose. You aren't going to have any sharp edges where the horse could get something caught and hurt on. You want to be sure that, again, that all your latches are nice and firm. When you put your horse in, if a horse sees an opening big enough to get their head through, they think they can get their whole body through. And I've seen horses literally try to get out the side of a trailer through the window. So you might be careful about having those windows closed. And please do not drive down the highway with your horse's head sticking out from that trailer. It's a very dangerous thing for the horse to do that. As I say, they think they'll be able to go ahead and come out of that whole trailer if they can get their head out of there. Let's talk about whether we want to feed our horses while they're traveling or not. If you have a horse that's a little nervous about getting in the trailer, you have to work with them a little bit, and they get a little bit hot, they could choke on some hay. So you want to be a little careful about that. If they're an easy loader and you're going to have hay up there, don't forget about the hazard that the hay bag can be. I've seen horses when the trailer had to stop quickly, the horse got his foot forward up in that hay bag, and now they've got a second problem is they've got their foot caught in the hay bag. So be careful about that. Horses need to drink water very rarely, just the opposite of the human. Putting water in your trailer is not a good idea. It's going to give a slick surface, and horses usually don't drink on the road anyway. Usually recommend that we do not feed hay to our horses while we're traveling them, especially for short trips, and certainly no water in the trailer while we're traveling. There was some research, truly some research, that showed if you have a mirror up in the trailer, a horse that rides by himself is going to feel much more comfortable. And so putting a mirror off to the side is going to make that horse not feel like they're alone, and they'll feel much more relaxed. So that's a nice tidbit for you. The other thing is to consider a camera inside the trailer. It gives the driver a lot of comfort where they can just look up on that camera through their cell phone and be sure that everything is safe in the horse in the back. So let's talk now about what safety precautions we need to put on our horse themselves. So what other safety measures do we want to have for our horses? Some horses paw quite a bit in the trailer and need some protection for their legs. So let's talk about protection boots. There are these boots, well made, fleece on the inside, that are easy just to Velcro on the horse's legs. There are these, which are track bandages. You want to put a quilt underneath first. You want to be very careful with these track bandages that they are put on securely and snugly and don't come off during the ride, because then you've got this long string of bandage material there on the trailer, which is could be a hazard for the horse. Splint boots that are used when horses are ridden can also be used for trailering, but they don't cover much of the leg. Usually our trailer injuries in horses are going to be lower on the coronary, on the fetlock, and these don't offer a whole lot of protection for those areas. Whatever type of bandaging that you're going to use on your horse, be sure the horse is comfortable with the bandaging before you do that trailer ride. Put them on someday, just hang around the barn, and be sure they get used to those bandages. Some horses are uncomfortable with bandages, especially on their hind legs. And be sure the bandage or protection is not going to come off while you're traveling, because that just makes a much bigger mess. The horse stems on it, he's scared then, doesn't know what to do. You're not there to help him, so be sure that those bandages are going to stay on nice and snugly. This is a nice protection for the top of a horse's head. Often a horse will get into a trailer and they'll get scared, they'll throw their head up, and man, they've got a big cut laceration on their fetlock or a laceration between their pole. These will help protect a horse from that. Of course, the best protection is having your horse well trained so that he'll get in and out of that trailer and follow your lead a little bit better. But these have been nice protections for horses that want to throw their head up and hit the top of the trailer. I think it's helpful and probably a good, especially on like today, is a kind of a windy, cold day in Colorado. If you had a trailer accident, had a flat tire, and your horse had to stand outside the trailer waiting for AAA or for you to change that tire, you may want something to protect him from the wind and the cold. So having a sheet with you in your tack trunk, I think, is a good safety measure that you may really be happy to have. So the question is whether to trailer with a blanket on, and that's up to you. A trailer like we've been working with here is going to be very warm. Horses are going to create a lot of warmth when they're in that trailer. It's all enclosed, so the horses are really not going to get very cold. You want to be sure that the blanket isn't going to get caught on any of the stall or anything, so that could be a hazard for the horse as well. So most of the times, the less we have on a horse, the less there is to become something that would be a hazard and scare the horse and hurt them later on. It's really important when you load a horse in the trailer that you recognize their fears. So I'm letting him kind of smell, look around. I'm keeping his attention on me. He knows exactly what I want, but I'm not forcing him. Here, come on, bud. Now that our horse is in the trailer, there are a couple of questions, and one is, how do we tie them, okay? So some of the most severe accidents I see in horse trailers is when horses do not understand when they're tied and when they're not tied. So often people will forget to untie the horse's head, and the horse will back up he'll be tied, and then we have a terrible injury. So you want to be sure that your horse is well trained and knows how to tie well before you get to this phase that we are now with the horse. I like to just use their lunge line or their lead rope and just tie it through the rings. And you want this tight enough so that the horse cannot get his foot over it, but you don't want it so tight that they cannot use their head. Horses balance themselves by using their head and neck, okay? You can see my horse is liking to look out the windows. That gives him some comfort that he can see where he wants to be. Now, one thing you want to remember is when a horse goes and you go around a corner, how is the horse going to stabilize themselves? So they often will spread their legs so that they can protect themselves as they go around the corner, or lean up against the wall. That's one reason I see some horses, they'll lean against the wall. If the trailer goes too fast around the corner, they can slide underneath these rails, and we see injuries that way. So be careful, drivers, that you don't go around the corners too fast. It's too hard for the horse to maintain their balance. And you can see as they would lean too hard on one side, how easy it is for them to slip right underneath the panels. The other injury that we see sometimes in horses is they get a leg caught over the bar here. This panel is nice and high, but if you've got panels that are lower, a horse can easily get the hind leg caught over this panel and get a lot of injuries that way. Again, since your horse is well trained, going to get him out of the trailer isn't going to be hard. Remember, he's tied. Some people will open the window and untie them before they come in through this way. So just be sure that you know how you're going to prevent that horse from getting out of the trailer. Remember, they want to get out of the trailer. They don't like being in the trailer. So they may get out of the trailer a little faster than you're expecting. So be sure that they're either well trained and are going to stand while you untie them at the front, or you untie them through the window. He can turn around and come out frontwards, okay? If you're traveling in an open trailer, horses like to stand looking backwards. So if this horse were in this trailer and there were no partitions and we took him on a ride, when we got to where we wanted to be, he'd probably be standing just like this. Again, because they can see around them and that's their protection. You ready? Don't force him out. Let him figure out his own way. There you go. So now we've got our safe horse, happy to our event. We got there safely, no bad problems with our trailer. And what are we going to do now when the horse standing next to us in the little corral we put our horse in has got snot coming out of both nostrils? Oh my gosh, what are we going to do about that? Well, our horse is exposed. Horse is going to get exposed to viruses from other horses from many feet away. In the aerosol, the horse coughs quite a bit longer distance that cough is going to, those bacteria and viruses are going to travel in that cough. So you always never know where the other horses have come from and what diseases they may have. Owner may not know the horse is sick. There may have been something in the barn and their horse is just starting to get it, but still quite contagious. Be sure you take your own water buckets. Be sure you're able to wash those water buckets. Of course, stay away from a horse that you know that their horse has any illness. Take a thermometer and know how to use that thermometer. It's one of the first questions we ask people when they call. Does your horse have a fever? So taking a horse's temperature is going to be our first knowledge that there's something coming on. So be sure that you know how to do that. When you get your horse and then you go back from the show, you're back into the trailer, your horse may have some viruses that they caught just on their own or maybe from another horse. What happens then? Your horse coughs in the trailer. What's that mean for the trailer? It's always a good idea to disinfect some of those areas. At our veterinary hospital, we use something as simple as this. Cheap, get it at any hardware store. It's got a little bit of a pressure that comes in here. It sprays, it's got a nice spray. You can put your disinfectant in it, keep it in your tack trunk, and then you're always ready to not be passing germs from one place to another. Bacteria can live in the soil for a long period of time. Viruses don't live as long, but they still can be sources of contagion. We see now in veterinary medicine many more diseases in horses because there's so much more transportation of horses than there used to be, and a higher density of horses in one area. And both those things increase the risk of disease in our horses.